Hello, I'm Org, and in this video I will review the Erie, the Tier 1 United States Navy cruiser. But of course, like the Hashidate, the Erie is not actually a cruiser, it was in fact a gunboat. The Eries came out of a loophole in the naval armament restrictions of the London Treaty. Essentially, navies could build any number of ships that weighed less than 2,000 tons, sailed at less than 20 knots, and had 4 or less guns of less than 6.1 inch caliber. The Eries were designed to kind of push the limits of those restrictions and undertake a number of minor roles to free up larger ships such as destroyers. They were intended to escort slow convoys or aircraft carriers and provide anti-aircraft and anti-submarine support, as well as mine-laying, supporting submarine or destroyer operations, and old-fashioned gunboat diplomacy. The Eries were designed in 1931 and 1932. They were to weigh 2,000 tons exactly and have 4 6-inch guns with a top speed of 20 knots. As I said, they were pushing the limits of what was allowed under the London Treaty. However, the Great Depression delayed construction of these ships as the US government was not willing to forward the funds. Instead, work had to wait until Franklin Roosevelt was elected and the ships were built under the National Industrial Recovery Act, which was an early manifestation of the New Deal. That was an attempt to get industrial workers back on the job. 2 gunboats were built, the Erie and the Charleston. Both spent the early years of their career in Europe. The Erie had the most eventful tour of Europe, where it was being used to protect US interests and citizens during the Spanish Civil War. During this war, it might have been fired upon by the nationalist battleship España. Just watch these torpedoes. Nope, they didn't quite have the legs to get me. Anyway, the Erie might have been fired on by the nationalist battleship España. The Erie was sitting in a harbour in, a Republican harbour on the northern coast of Spain, when the España fired up and fired at least 3 12-inch shells into the harbour. The nearest shell landed 300 metres away, and it was away from the Erie, that is. It was likely that the crew of the España did not recognise the Erie, even if they, it's questionable whether they actually even saw the Erie. So nothing came of that event in the end. After the European tours, the Eries were transferred back to the Americas, where the Erie eventually found itself stationed in Panama, while the Charleston wound up in Alaska. When the Second War started, the Erie soon found itself caught up in the German submarine campaign in the Caribbean, where it was sunk by U-163 in November 1942. The Charleston, however, survived the war. It spent the duration of the conflict in the Alaskan theatre. Most of its time was spent patrolling, although the Charleston did also participate in the bombardment of Attu Island at the end of the Aleutians campaign. The naval bombardment did little to diminish Japanese resistance, although the Charleston did successfully dodge a torpedo bomber attack. In World of Warships, the Erie is a fine Tier 1 cruiser. It has 4 152mm guns in single mounts. It's bigger than the 120mm guns on the Hashidate, but bigger isn't always better. The Hashidate has a significantly better rate of fire and slightly better turret traverse than the Erie. However, the advantages the Eries have is slightly higher alpha damage, and better gun range, and a higher chance to cause fires, which is very useful at Tier 1 since everyone's firing high explosive, including me. Although the Erie does more damage per hit, the higher rate of fire gives the Japanese cruiser an edge in DPM, which is kind of the deciding factor down at Tier 1. I think the Japanese cruiser gets a particular edge because it gets 12,000 and something hit points, while the Erie only gets 9,900. The Erie does have better maneuverability than the Hashidate. An extra knot of top speed can be useful, particularly when combined with the longer range of the Erie. Difficult to use really effectively though, but you can keep it at range. The extra rudder responsiveness of the Erie is also very useful in dodging shots. My main strategy in the Erie was to angle my ship and try to minimise the area I was presenting at my enemy while wriggling the rudder to essentially dodge shots a little bit, or at least make my movements difficult to predict. You see me doing it right here. The turret burst on the Erie is sufficient to keep up with your turns and continue firing, again as you see me doing here. Other than that, I just focus on gunning down the weakest enemies first, and also focus firing with my allies where you can. There isn't exactly a lot of strategy at Tier 1, so I just concentrated on accurate firing and a bit of teamwork, and tends to get me towards victory more often than not. Anyway, this game was the best game I ever had in the Erie. At least I got the most kills and I think I did the most damage. See, so far I've managed to get 20 hits on target and I've started 2 fires. I pulled back a bit initially there because I was basically by myself. There's another cruiser with me, but it was being a bit suicidal, but I pulled back. And now I'm in a group of 4 other friendly cruisers. Well, one of them's actually leaving, so there's going to be 3 of us shortly. And we are focusing down this enemy cruiser in front of us. And basically, I'm just doing the damage that I can, getting a few critical hits, but mostly I'm hoping to start a fire. And if you're wondering what that cruiser that I just sunk was, well, so was I at the time, but I think it must have been the enemy cruiser I was firing at earlier that sailed behind the island, so I stopped shooting at it. I think it must have burnt to death from one of my shells. So I actually got a lot of fire damage in this game, thanks in large part to that ship obviously not being able to put out the fire before I sunk it. See, this Chikuma here is not having a good day. It's been focused down by 4 of our cruisers, including myself, and as you can see it's basically just under a constant stream of fire. I set it on fire at the end there, but one of my allies got the kill. But still, 32 hits in a Tier 1 games, this is already a pretty good game. I've sunk 1 ship, started 3 fires, and I know one of those fires at least did a lot of damage. But the matches are even. Enemies actually kind of winning because they hold A and B, whereas we hold nothing. But we're even on ships. They've got, well, we've got a destroyer each, so I suppose that's even as well. And basically I'm going to go with these 2 cruisers in front of me, and hopefully we'll provide enough force that we can basically overwhelm the enemy ships individually as we encounter them. So here's a Chester, and it's not firing at me, so I feel free to just set myself up as a good angle and continue straight and focus on aiming to hit the ship. Got 1 shot on target, which isn't great, but it'll do. And now I'm shooting too far forward because the Chester's engine was actually wrecked there briefly, so it lost a bit of speed. These next shots here look better. And I think I actually just destroyed its engines there quickly as well. Or at least it did something. I thought I saw smoke coming out of the exhausts, but maybe not. By smoke I mean fire. I'm under fire from that cruiser way off to the left, but I've actually angled my ship very effectively towards that enemy cruiser, so it's going to have a very small target. You see there, it's got a very small target to hit. Fortunately it got lucky there and did some heavy damage to me. The Chester in front of us has been sunk, so I switch fire to this Chester, which is no longer shooting at me, probably because I've sailed behind the island, and I fired 2 shots, get a hit. Didn't do much damage, but it all adds up. And that puts me on, I can't actually read that, 40 something hits. Still only 1 sinking and only 3 fires, so I didn't do that well against the Chester. But I've lost a lot of hit points. And, well, I'm down to about a quarter of them. Another enemy cruiser presents itself, and for some reason I seem to be the only one firing at this guy. I know there goes a couple of allied shots. It's the only cruiser visible, so we should all be firing away at it. And I'm doing a lot of damage, but my team keep missing. That cruiser spotted again, but the island's in the way, so I don't have shots on it. I change course to try and get some shots on this Chester, so that essentially the island won't be in my way. I can fire over the island for now, but if I had kept the other course I wouldn't have been. Helped capture the base C, and my team are now moving into B to capture it, but we are very far behind on points. Just slowed down a bit so I didn't ram that friendly cruiser. And continue firing at this Chester. Actually, is it a Chester? I think it's a Chikuma. No, it's a Chester. Don't know why I thought it was a Chikuma. Anyway, continue to fire. I've set it on fire, and the fire's burning, so I'm getting a bit more damage from that. enemy cruisers over there, but it's ignoring me for now. Started another fire, and that one's also probably going to burn for a while since it looks like it's put out the first one. But I managed to sink it. Unfortunately, I'm on very, very low health, but I fire off a broadside at that enemy cruiser, which is also on very low health, and I managed to sink it while dodging most of its return fire. But basically I can't take any more damage now. But 3 kills, it's a pretty good spot to be in, and we're still behind on points, but my team has 4 ships, all cruisers, against an enemy cruiser, which you see over there, which has a lot of hit points, and a destroyer, which is unspotted at the moment. So even though we're behind on points, we've got a pretty significant advantage here. Basically we just got to join up and stick together. One of our cruisers has just sunk though, whether it was from fire or flooding, I'm not sure, or a sudden torpedo hit. Couldn't tell you, but there's the destroyer spotted, briefly. Managed to capture B, so we're gaining points quicker than the enemy are, which is a very good position to be in. But that lead cruiser in our team's taken a lot of fire. The destroyer's disappeared again, and it's obviously fired some torpedoes, and that cruiser takes a hit, leaves it on very, very low health. And the destroyer's popped smoke, so it's going to be very difficult for us to see it. And unfortunately, I can't really contribute here. I know that if I go, that cruiser's just died. If I go up against the enemy cruiser, I will die very quickly. But the only thing I really can do is, I was basically thinking I'd sail into the A cap zone and try and capture it, and then hopefully come around and spot the destroyer, because that's all I can really do. I mean, I'll be able to sink the destroyer if it keeps missing me, but I can't really rely on that. The enemy cruiser's disappeared, and I'm hoping I can get into A and behind this island before it pops up, but it's not to be. It's popped up behind me, and I'm able to get 2 shots off, and here comes the enemy shells, and that's me dead. But still, 84 hits, the best game I ever had in the Erie, and well, I hope you found this review useful, and I'll see you all next time. Actually, that's not 82, why did I say that? 64 hits, still a lot. Anyway, I'll see you all next time.